This is the Oukitel BT12 and I'm going to get it out of the box and have a look at it right now, and I'm going to wear it for a little while for things like sport. Now, this is another inexpensive smartwatch. I've tried a few. I do like having an inexpensive smartwatch around to wear whilst I play sport. Most of the time I'm wearing this, the Viwoods Scan Watch, and a watch is going to have to look pretty good to actually replace that on my wrist. This one, it looks like it's got some good features, got good battery life. That's the memory, 256 megabytes. I have no idea if that's good enough for a smartwatch or not. 1.43 inch screen. Just one strap in this one, nice user manual and charging cable. So I need to get the Glory Fit Pro app, I suppose. Now, the interesting things to test out about this type of watch, if it's GPS, if it really is GPS, or if it's actually just doing GPS when it's linked to your phone, like a lot of them do. It's got a barometer in it, okay, compass. Supposedly the AI voice is something that actually differentiates this from other smartwatches I've tried, so it'll be interesting to see if that's any good. Obviously it's got heart rate monitoring, lots of sports, 3 atmospheres, waterproofing, so that would be down to 30 meters, would it, I suppose? Is that right? 100,000? I'll do it off the top of my head. And step counting and sleep monitoring, like most smartwatches would be. Now this is actually a screen protector that's already on there. So when you get these, always just be aware that you might be about to peel off the entire screen protector. Yeah. And leave yourself with a bubble in your watch forever, like we've just done there. That's gone, good. Right, I wonder if this is charged up and ready to go. Hit the power button, seems to be. English, please. I have had a few things from Oukitel before, and I can tell you that they are living a life. They're being used. I think my dad has the Oukitel tablet that I've used, and my son used it for some time, and my dad has now become the beneficiary of that, and it's doing what he wanted to do. He wanted a large Android thing to do spreadsheets on, basically, and it is doing that. Oh, it's a big thing, isn't it? Tired, I think. Now, Oukitel did send this out free of charge. I do get to keep it. They're not going to get to see this video before it goes live. And yeah, they've not asked me to say anything else. Just simply sent it and asked me if I could feature it in some content, please. There's no strings attached. I have no reason to say anything at all about it. I'm going to go ahead and make an account, and I'm going to wear it. I'm going to wear it for several weeks, and then I'll come back here after this clip and I will tell you my thoughts on it and whether I think it's worth the money. I've been wearing the Oukitel BT12 for a couple of weeks now, and yeah, it's a perfectly acceptable watch. Now, if you want a cheaper alternative to a Viwoods, or if you're looking for a first watch for somebody that doesn't break the bank, this might be a choice for you. I really like the week-long battery I've been getting out to it. That is well worth it, being quite a bit oversized, to be honest. I've been running it on half brightness, but also with the always-on display on too, and I actually quite like that. Though if I glance at my watch, I don't even need to lift my wrist. It's always telling me the time. Apart from in its routines that it just has nothing on during the hours that you set for bedtime. Oh, a couple of things. It's a shame that the Smart Assistant isn't better, because it goes to Bixby. Could actually be useful to be able to hold down a button and go into a Smart Assistant. But for me, on my watch, it launched Bixby, and Oukitel can't be blamed for Bixby, sure. I think that this will launch whatever is set as your Smart Assistant on your phone, and I don't see a way that I can change that to something sensible like the Google Smart Assistant or ChatGPT or something. And it's the fact that it just looks like a knockoff of Siri. That's the thing that gives this watch that cheap look. And that's a theme that runs through the whole watch. There's quite a lot that just looks like a bit of a knockoff of an Apple Watch, really. And the thing is that it wouldn't have been too difficult for them to actually just added a ChatGPT Smart Assistant into their app. That's not hard at the moment. It's what Apple have done with Apple Intelligence. So perhaps they might have actually gone to the trouble of making their own AI assistant. I don't think that that's massively important though. For a watch at this price point, you're not expecting them to do a huge amount of R&D themselves. And you can see that right through into the app that they have used, which is called the Glory Fit Running Pro app or something like that, which is exactly the same app that I've used on other inexpensive smartwatches. It's got the same watch faces, it's got a different name, and it syncs to the BT12 rather than them, I suppose. But really, this is exactly the same interface that I've already seen. I can't remember exactly which watch it was, but on other smartwatches. So we're talking about things that are fine, but then nothing to write home about. There's nothing special about this. The look of it is also fine, but I think that at this price point, there's a few options that you can actually get that come with a second strap. For instance, a nice metal strap that can transform it a bit into more of a dress watch. And again, the look is fine, but it's not good. It's not something attractive. I don't look at this and think, yeah, that's a really nice thing to have on my wrist. It's just acceptable. So I have used clear inspiration from Apple Watch, but also that's a good thing in a way, because it does mean that the icons are quite familiar and you immediately know what you're looking at. Like, this is your equivalent of circles to close them, and you've got settings obviously looking exactly like the settings in an Apple Watch. So they've clearly done their research on what Apple Watches look like. But it is a shame that on a smartwatch at this price point, you can't just install the Android Wear OS that you can get on some more premium models. I just frankly want to be able to install custom apps on here. But I am very impressed by the battery. And as I said, I run it with the always on. Here's the knockoff Bixby thing that looks like Siri and doesn't do anything on here. I think that's more to do with the phone you pair with it, rather than that Smart Assistant launcher button that you've got there. One of the dials on the face I've got at the minute is the battery. You can see it's getting close to that 20% mark, and I'm finding I'm getting about 5 days out of the battery. And I'm pleased with that, because I don't want to have a watch that I have to think about charging every single day. The sports tracking has been okay. There are lots of different sports to choose from. Got your sort of favorites here, and then at the bottom you can add to that favorites list all the other types of sports that you can do. There's lots to choose from, and they do different things. They track different things when you do that. And you can look through the history directly on the watch. You don't have to go to the app to do that. And it does do proper GPS. So here's a run. By the way, part of the run was taking the children to school, so don't look at my pace, because I was also dropping them off for quite a while, and we stopped for a stretch halfway around as well. But I didn't have my phone with me, and you can see that it has done a proper GPS of the route, so there's that. And look out for that, because actually there's plenty of smartwatches at this price point where they say that they're GPS enabled, but the GPS only works when you're linked to a smartphone that has GPS on it. So they sometimes say GPS, but really they're just logging the GPS data from your phone, whereas this is certainly working with its own GPS without my phone being linked to it. So that's quite good. You can see my outdoor run just logged recently. And so sharing the app is a reasonable strength, because it's at least got a reasonably fully featured smartphone app there as well. And the thing about these inexpensive smartwatches is they're not going to get quite to the level as a really nicely designed Apple Watches or Galaxy Watches or the Withings that I normally wear, which does have great sports tracking and which I've frankly fallen in love with the design of. So I think if the makers of these types of smartwatches took a little bit more care over the way their things looked and gave you actually designs that you could really find attractive, that would be a real strength for them. However, if you were looking for an inexpensive, second, more rugged smartwatch to take with you for sport, then this would be an acceptable option. I am just finding it, though, a little bit less comfortable, and I'm finding some of these kind of rougher edges just get caught on things like my clothes and things like that. Yeah, it's just not so comfortable to wear full time, really. So my friend asked me which smartwatches I would actually recommend as I review them. And I said to him, well, I think you should buy whatever goes with the ecosystem of your phone. So if you're a Samsung user, I just think probably go with a Samsung smartwatch. If you're an iPhone user, it's a no-brainer to buy an Apple Watch. Unless you're looking at spending half of that, or maybe even less than half of that. I just think that the user interface and generally the connectivity between that and your phone will be a lot more seamless if you go ahead and stick with the one that's designed to go into that ecosystem. I think there's a couple of exceptions to that. I think the Withings is a great option if you want something that is actually a mechanical watch, and you can see I immediately look for a watch face which looks like a mechanical watch on these digital watches, and it never gets anywhere close to being as attractive as the real thing. Or if you're an outdoor person or you need a specialized running watch like the Garmin's of the world. And I think we're at the stage now where smartwatches have been around long enough that you can get a couple of generations old Galaxy watch for not too much more expensive than this watch here, for instance. Or you can get an Apple Watch 4, I think they're on like 7 or something now, aren't they? And it's actually pretty inexpensive. I think you might as well stay in that ecosystem, and we've reached a point where most smartwatches are pretty much acceptable. However, when a company like Oukitel do bring a smartwatch that's about this price that actually has 4G connectivity on its own, then I'll be there for that, because that seems to be currently reserved for the Apple and Samsung Watch Ultras of the world. I'm pleased with this though. It's been pretty easy to use, it's been immediately familiar, and it's been useful for my sports tracking. But now I've done that review, which one am I going to put back on my wrist? Well, the Withings is going back on my wrist, and I'm very glad about that. But I will probably keep this around as my sports watch for some time to come. Probably just for that one killer feature, which no watch at that price point that I've tried has done yet, which is it being its own GPS. That is useful if you want to track your runs without having to carry your chunk of a smartphone around.